Well, Mr Javid's pick for Prime Minister Liz Truss is facing accusations of grossly offensive remarks after a recording leaked of her saying that British workers need more graft. Here's exactly what she said.
British workers produce less per hour, and that's a combination of kind of skill and application. What needs to happen is, a bit more graft.
Joining us now, someone I'm sure has a view on that, the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. Very good morning, Ms Cooper.
Good morning.
Let's start with that particular recording. You, like me, are possessed of a regional accent. I'm just wondering why you don't graft as hard as those down in the South East.
Do you know, it's a total disgrace what Liz Truss has said. I think it reveals what she really thinks. This comes after the proposal she put forward to cut public sector pay in the north and other parts of the country so that teaching assistants or nurses here in Yorkshire would get paid less than people in London or the South East. And she's also now just said that people should be working harder outside London. She has absolutely no idea that people are working incredibly hard. There are people who are getting up to go to their shifts right now, watching your programme just before they go to work, working incredibly hard to try and make ends meet, who are facing these nightmare inflation figures, these soaring energy bills, and doing their best to keep everything together, and just got this insult that just shows, I think, Liz Truss does not understand working people right across the country. It's deeply wrong of her to say this.
And of course, everyone's going to have to work that much harder now. The CPI figure out this morning, 10.1% inflation, means that, again, wage growth is just simply going to be outstripped by inflation. It's a reality. Is it tenable in your mind that we are, in essence, going to have to wait for the emergency budget that will inevitably follow whoever enters number 10 on the 5th of September? Or should we be hearing more from the government right now?
We need urgent action. We can't wait. We can't just drift while the Conservative leadership candidates just fight amongst themselves. We need action now. That's why Labour's put forward this plan for an energy price freeze. So no one has to pay an extra penny on their energy bills through the winter, because otherwise, if we don't get that action, bills are likely to go up by another £1,000. That is on top of the over 10% inflation that people are already seeing. And if you don't take that action, inflation's going to go up even higher. That's why we're saying act now, act quickly before the price announcements about 9 or 10 days' time for energy bills in the autumn. Make sure that people have got the reassurance that they can actually make it through the winter without ending up being cut off, unable to pay their bills or unable to pay for their food.
I mean, it's clearly not desperately surprising that so many people are in favour of your policy. Indeed, a majority of Conservative members polled appear to agree that if they can avoid paying a penny more in terms of their energy bills, that's the policy they want. But the criticism is legitimate, though, that this is a short-term measure. It covers 6 months. It costs £29 billion. If you were in government, you'd undoubtedly have to extend it another 6 months, another £30 billion on top of it. And at the end of the day, party members, Labour Party members, are asking the very straightforward question. If we were prepared to pay this amount of money if we were in government, why not just nationalise?
What you've got to do is to something very quick, emergency measures that will actually get people through the winter, because this is when we're expecting the price rises to come. And that's actually the best thing to do, is to get those payments in place and to get the windfall tax on the oil and gas companies who are making record profits. Make them pay their fair share by extending that windfall tax and use that to cut the bills. So look, there are wider problems about the way in which the energy markets work. There's wider long-term action that's needed in order to cut energy bills for the long term, including insulating more homes, including introducing renewables, and including looking again at the whole way the energy market works, which is a problem. But none of that actually delivers a fast action in order to cut people's bills. And that's why the priority now is not about payments to shareholders. The priority now is about action to freeze energy bills for this winter.
But we find ourselves in a situation where these energy companies are enjoying, despite the fact that despite the fluctuations in the wholesale price, they are making record profits to an extent and charging their customers to an extent that already many people are struggling to pay their bills. Now, all this week I've tried to get someone from the Conservative Party to admit that this is clearly market failure. I can understand why they won't. But I also don't really understand why, when you're genuinely prepared to spend, £60 billion propping up the energy companies, subsidising the energy companies, that nationalisation isn't the first thing on your lips in the way in which it was, when Sir Keir Starmer came out with his 10 manifesto promises.
There's a total market failure, and we will set out what the response to that market failure should be as part of our longer-term plans and as part of the manifesto that we set out for the government. But anything around looking at the ownership of companies doesn't help you cut bills immediately, and that's why the priority right now is to get that energy bill freeze in place. Because obviously, look, you've got rising wholesale prices, you've also got the need to take immediate action because the bills are going to go through right now before you can do anything more. So that's why we set out a really simple policy. Just freeze energy bills for this winter. Make the oil and gas companies pay more. Be prepared to take them on. Liz Truss has said she won't. She's against even the principle of a windfall tax. Rishi Sunak even had to be dragged into it. So there is a big divide here between the Labour approach and the Conservatives approach, that we really believe you've got to have active government step in and make sure that those vested interests in the oil and gas companies are actually paying on those excess profits that have gone up, not because of anything that they've done, but because they are benefiting from what's happening in this cost of living crisis. So it's right that they should pay more, but it's also right that we should take immediate action to freeze bills. Nothing else will actually help people get through the winter.
I mean, Liz Truss is pretty explicit about this. I mean, she says that the policy of increased taxes on oil firms' profits may well put off investors coming to the United Kingdom. She's got a point.
But these aren't profits that they've made as a result of their hard work, as a result of things that they've done, or even things that they were planning for. These are talking about excess profits that they've only made because of prices shooting up, because of global prices going up as well. And they are making those profits as a result of everybody else having to pay more in their energy bills. They weren't expecting these excess profits. You've got to take action. You can't just say it's fair for them to get all these extra profits for not having done anything, any extra work as a result, and people across the country to be pushed into debt, into poverty, potentially being cut off from their energy supplies, being unable to heat their homes, being unable to put hot food on the table. We've got to take that action to support families right across the country who are otherwise going to be hit by another £1,000 on their energy bills. That is just wrong. Government needs to act. A Labour government would act. We're urging the Conservatives to stop faffing around and to take the action that we need to support families now.
Yvette Cooper, thanks for joining us.